So, finally happened. You broke your GoPro Session 5, and now you need a new action camera. You could buy the GoPro Hero 8 Black, but maybe it's too expensive for you. Or maybe you don't want to stick this big, heavy 120 gram glass cannon of a action camera on your freestyle quad that you're just gonna smash in a concrete bando. Maybe you've seen people on YouTube or people on social media talk about the CADX Orca and the Runcam 5. These are pretty affordable action cameras, but the big million-dollar question of the day is, can these do Superview? Can these cameras do that magical dynamic stretch that GoPro does? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am here to tell you that these cameras can do that, and I'm going to teach y'all how to do it. I'm the pilot in command, and you're going to learn something today. Oh my gosh, that felt amazing! I nailed it! Woo! So, I hope y'all enjoyed that intro. That was me imitating Ladrib while he was imitating Joshua Bardwell when he was at his house in one of his vlogs. I don't know. I thought it was a funny yet appropriate way to kind of open up this video because, yeah, I am going to teach y'all how to get that GoPro Superview look out of non-GoPro cameras. I guess in theory you could do this with any camera, but I'm going to be showing y'all with action cameras because that's kind of what I deal with on a regular basis when I want to put an HD cam on my drone. Now there are two ways to get GoPro Superview, and I'm going to show y'all both of them. One way is only going to be for cameras with that can shoot in a 4:3 aspect ratio. There is a way you can do this with a 16:9, but it's not going to look as good. I'll explain more in detail kind of as we get into the video. So that being said, without further ado, let's get started. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and talk about the first method. And this is the method that I use the most. And this is also the method that will give you real, legit GoPro Superview. But you will need this program. This is GoPro Studio. This is GoPro's original video editing software. You can still find this program. Just Google search GoPro Studio for Mac and PC, and you should be able to find places to download it. It's a free video editing software. If you're a Linux user, I don't think there's a GoPro Studio for Linux, but I could be wrong. But if you're a Mac or PC user, there are places online that you can find this program. When you open up GoPro Studio, this should be the screen that you are presented with. So first things first, what you're going to want to do at this stage is this little icon where it says Save To. Go ahead and click that, and change directory. Right. So what you're going to do is you're just going to choose a place to save your converted footage. So I have it just saved to my external hard drive. I have a folder here called Conversion. Simple as that. So now that you've got a place where your converted footage is going to be stored, if you're importing like not GoPro footage, you have to convert whatever video files you're putting into GoPro Studio just in order to get the program to read it. I don't know why. This is just how this program works. So after you've got a place where all your converted videos are going to go, you are going to go to Import New Files. In my case, I'm just going to pull this file off of my SD card. This is in 4:3. You're going to click Open. You're going to click and drag to the center here. Now, what I like to do is use this timeline and these little icons. So there's some of this footage that I know I'm not going to use. So what you can actually do is edit it out. So I'm just looking for the spot where I take off with my drone, and that's where I'm going to start. So So right here, I'm going to drop a little marker icon there, and then I'm going to drop another little icon over, so right there where I land. So I'm going to drop something at the end there. So all I'm doing right here is I'm just kind of chopping off the beginning of the footage and the end of the footage, just pieces that I know that I'm not going to use. But if you want to use the whole thing, then you don't have to do this step. So once you have this all done, you click Add to Conversion List. It'll pop up here. It says Waiting, and then you click Convert. And this process is usually pretty quick. When your video file is done, it should say Done, and you should see the little Convert button. It should change into a little thing that says Proceed to Step 2. Now, before we go to Step 2, I forgot to mention something. This method is only going to work with 4x3 footage. So in order to get this particular Superview look, you need to be using 4x3 footage inside of GoPro Studio. There is a way to get a Superview-like look on 16:9 footage. I'm going to show you all that, but that's the second version. Right now, this is only for 4x3. Just wanted to put that out there. So that being said, let's move on. We're going to click Proceed to Step 2. And when I do, while this thing comes up, I'm going to just give me a blank template. Create. All right, so you're going to arrive at a look like this. Now, this is normally where you would edit your, this is where you would start, pulling your footage down into a timeline and start editing it. We're not going to use this here. I just use GoPro Studio as really just as a conversion tool and nothing else, because, well, this thing is really clunky and DaVinci Resolve 15 is better. Okay. Now the thing we are going to be using is this little nugget right here, this 4x3 to wide. This is the magic that basically will stretch your 4x3 footage to 16:9 and give it that non-linear dynamic stretch that Superview does. So let's do that. So you're going to click your footage, you're going to drag it down, and this is, again, where GoPro Studio is going to be a little clunky. I don't know if this is a universal thing for any machine running GoPro Studio, yeah, just for me, this is really, really just slow for whatever reason. So it's in here. Now what we're going to do, after it gets done freaking out, when you get to this point, all you're going to do is you're going to double click on this. You're going to double click on 4x3 to wide. That will add the effect to whatever video is in this timeline, and then you will be good to go. Yeah, I'm sorry this is going slow. It's only going slow because I'm doing a screen recording and GoPro Studio at the same time. Nothing I can do about that. I just want to double check really quick and just see how it looks. So see, look, we've added the look. So now it has the Superview filter on it, or preset for lack of a better term. Again, it's this 4x3 to wide. So how do we turn this into footage that we can actually use? Well, funny you should ask. When we come to our final step, this is the export tab. So you go up here to export. Now, there are some presets. I like to use custom because you can select how your megabits per second. This is really important when you're uploading to YouTube. And basically all you want to do is you want to match your original file size to this. And actually, let me do something really quick. So my original file size of this guy, because this is the original file, get info. Yeah, so this file is 1.89 gigs, and we are going to be exporting to 1.8 gigs. So it's close enough. I mean, I could drag this up a little bit. I'm not going to get 1.89, so I'm just going to leave it at 53 megabits per second. I'm going to leave the frame rate at 29.97 because, well, I can't select 30, and this is close enough. And you could change this to 2.7K, but I just leave it at just regular 19 by 20 by 1080 HD, and then I upscale it to 4K in DaVinci Resolve. So once you have all of that done, you click export. It's going to take a while. I'm not going to actually click export because this would take forever, because like I said, I'm doing a screen recording and it's trying to do all this conversion stuff. It's just not going to be pretty. So just take my word for it. This is the final step. And then, well, obviously rename it and just select where you want this file to be saved to. Now, one other interesting thing I do want to touch on before we move on to the second method is if you do this multiple times, like I'll just show you for example. Like let's say you go back to step 1. Okay, well first, let me go back. Let's say you export this. And let's say you export it as, test 1, right? You tell it where to go, you click export, the world is good. You go back into step 1, you import a new file, you get done converting it, you go over to step 2, you drop it in, you click 4x3 wide, you go to export, and then you type in test 2 or whatever. When you click export, don't be surprised if it says, exporting test 1, even though you've just called it test 2. I don't know why this system does this. Like I said, it's a bit clunky. But when you go back and you find where you saved your name, the name will still be kept. It just won't show that you're exporting it as whatever name you've set it as for whatever reason. At the end of this process, your 4x3 video will be stretched to 16 by 9, and it will have the Superview nonlinear dynamic stretch applied to your footage. So this is the way to get real, authentic Superview without a GoPro. But there are 2 catches with this particular process. Number 1, if you've got a bunch of video files, it takes a while to apply this. This is not a very quick process. It does take a lot of time. 2, this only works with 4x3 footage. This doesn't work with 16:9. So now I'm going to move on to the next part in this tutorial where I show y'all how to get a very, very similar look to Superview, but using 16:9 footage. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so now we are inside of DaVinci Resolve, and for those of you who have never used this program before, when you first start it, it should look something like this. I'll just show you how you do a project. So when you start a new project, well, whatever, it'll bring you over to a page, you name it, and then it should give you a screen like this. So I'm just going to, in addition to showing you all the Superview steps in DaVinci Resolve, I'm just going to show you how I set up my work table in DaVinci Resolve, just in case none of y'all have ever used this program before. So the first thing you do before you ever insert any files, you go down here to Project Settings. I changed this to 920 by 1080. And the most important thing is this timeline frame rate. You want to change this. I'm going to change it to 29.97. Well, no, I'm just going to select 30. Select 30 frames per second, because as soon as you start dropping in footage, you can't go in and change this. You can only set this thing one time, and that's at the very, very beginning. And I play the playback frame rate to 30. So make sure you do this before you start importing footage. Otherwise, you can't go back and change it. So yeah, and also when you go to the export setting, when you export this, your end product, your export frames per second are tied to this. So if you know you're going to want to export your project in 60 frames per second, you better select 60. And actually, that's the highest it'll go, at least on my version, is 60. So set this before you start importing footage. Now it's going to tell me a bunch of stuff that I don't care about. Now let's start adding in some footage. So we're going to go to File, Import Media. We're going to do this one. When you click, don't click change. Click don't change when that pulls up. Okay. So this is a 16:9 piece of footage right here. And as you can see, it's stretched. This is actually from the Cadex Orca. If you use the Cadex Orca and you decide to shoot in its 2.7K 60 frames per second option, what it does on the website, it says it's 4:3. But what I found that it does is it will shoot in 4:3 and then it will stretch it to 16:9. That's actually half of what Superview does. The only difference between this, the Cadex Orca, 2.7K, and GoPro 2.7K Superview, is that this is a linear stretch. It's not a dynamic stretch. So as you can see, kind of in this front section, this door is pretty stretched right here. It doesn't look very natural. So I'm going to show you how to fix that in DaVinci Resolve. So what you're going to do with your 16:9 footage is you're going to go to this tab. This is the Fusion tab. We're going to wait for it to freak out a bit. And so you'll be presented with a page like this. So this is where you add in effects in this little timeline. It looks daunting. It looks very daunting to me, but I'm going to show y'all how to do that. So you're going to go to Effects Library. You're going to go to Tools, Warp, and then what you want is actually something called Grid Warp. So that drops in like so, and actually, where is it? Reset all points. Okay, so I'm just going to, so it looks like this. I've actually kind of messed around with it a little bit. And then what you do to kind of add the effect after you've made your changes, click this line, drag it to this, click this little gray box, drag it to the media out, and now you've added in this effect. However, I'm going to load in a little something that I made. So you're going to go here to Settings. I'm going to click Load. I'll make this file available for you, but I have it saved to this guy right here. So when I click Open, so see this? It might have, it might be kind of hard to show, but now as you can see, it's not like a perfect grid anymore. Now the closer you get to the center, these are now squares, or as you can see at the end, they're rectangles. So I've actually gone in and I've made this grid. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. Close out of that. So you can actually, so when you're done and you kind of have this looking the way that you like, you can go in and you can actually save this preset. And I'm going to show you really quick just how I saved it. So after you've done what you need to do, you right click on Grid Warp. You're going to go down here to Settings. You want to click Save As. And then you just save it as whatever you want. I think I had mine saved. It just is like Superview V2 because I've gone through a couple different variations of this. I will make this file publicly available. I'm going to create a, I'll upload this to my Google Drive and I'll share the link with y'all down in the video description so you can download this setting so you don't have to go in and like move each of these points in to get this effect because trust me, it's a major, major, major pain. Okay, so let's actually just kind of look at this right now. Now this is not perfect. This is like Superview because basically I'm just squishing in the inside of this image, but I'm leaving kind of the outside stretch. This isn't perfect, especially when you are using video because it's very hard to see, but if you use this method, you'll notice like itty-bitty little faint lines where this grid hasn't done a very good job of kind of making that dynamic or nonlinear stretch. So if y'all want to play around with this, you can, like I said, like you can just import this template and play around with it to get it to look like, or
you can use this. Like I said, the defects are not very noticeable. So that's the second method on how to get a Superview like look without actually having a GoPro. This is not legit Superview. This is just like just something you can do in post to get it to look like Superview. So what are the problems with this method? Well, it doesn't take as long up front when you're just, importing footage, because like I said, you can just go in, effects library, tools, warp, grid warp, and then you can, load in whatever you want. So it doesn't take that long to do, but when it comes to exporting after you've done this, it takes a long time to export footage with this method. And also, if you try and edit any footage when you have this effect applied, you can just forget about it unless you have like a really, really powerful machine, because this will really slow down your playback footage. So what I recommend that you do, if you want to use this particular DaVinci Resolve method to get GoPro Superview, edit all of your footage first, like kind of get the sequence right, and then when you go back and do all of the color grading and stuff, go back in and add this effect, then export it, so that way you can at least see what your video is gonna kind of look like and have it still play in real time before you add this.
So that's it, really. Those are the two methods that I have found to get GoPro Superview without a GoPro. One is legit Superview, but you have to be shooting in 4:3. If you only have a camera that only does 16:9, then use DaVinci Resolve. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye!